Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Today we're going to be going over 10 more really great perks in Fallout New Vegas. Last time we did 10 of the best perks in Fallout New Vegas, and I think all 10 of those perks that we covered there are really strong. It was actually a little bit more than we covered than 10. This list will also have a little bit more than 10, just a heads up for everybody. But as a lot of people pointed out, there's a lot of really good perks in New Vegas, and some of them I did leave off the list. So let's go over 10 more really good ones. Coming in at our number 10 spot, we have PACKRAT. PACKRAT is more for a hardcore playthrough than a regular playthrough. A regular playthrough, I don't think PACKRAT is all that great or all that necessary, but in hardcore it can be really, really good. PACKRAT is a level 8 perk that requires 5 intelligence and 70 barter, so it does take a decent amount of barter early on, and usually I'm not putting a whole bunch of points into barter early, unless I'm specifically going for this perk really early on. What this does is that every item that weighs 2 or less gets its weight cut in half in your inventory. That is really useful on hardcore difficulty because you're going to need to be carrying around things like food, water, and ammunition, all of which have a decent amount of weight to them on the hardcore difficulty. At least if you're carrying around lots of food and lots of water, I guess. But ammunition, you're probably going to be carrying around a decent amount, and this affects every ammunition in the game with the exception of mini nukes, I believe. I think mini nukes are 3 weight. Every other ammunition is 2 or less. And this does help a lot with things like explosive builds, because explosives tend to weigh quite a bit if you want to be carrying around a decent amount of ammunition between the 25mm, the 40mm, and things like missiles. Again, it doesn't affect the mini nukes, but that's okay. Really useful perk for hardcore, not super useful if you're not playing the hardcore difficulty. Coming in at number 9, we have Radchild. Radchild has kind of grown on me, I would say. I wasn't a huge fan of it for quite a while because I didn't see it as that much of a bonus, and I still don't use it that often, but it is a pretty decent perk. It's a level 4 perk that requires 70 survival to get, and for this you get 2 health regeneration per 200 rads that you have, meaning that you can stack up rads pretty quickly. Again, this is probably more useful for the hardcore difficulty than for the normal difficulty, which I usually play on anyway, so that's mostly what I'm comparing this to. This makes it so you can regenerate quite a bit of health early game, because you're not going to get tons of Radaway, Rad-X early on, and there is a decent amount of places early on where you can get irradiated and get all your health back. It's also pretty good during combat, assuming you don't have massive radiation, or you're almost about to die from radiation, then it's not that good. You do have to keep an eye on your Geiger counter there, so your rads don't get too high. But it can be really useful. You can tank through quite a bit of damage and not use up a lot of your healing supplies early on, which can be really useful in the hardcore difficulty, where healing supplies may be a little bit more scarce, and you're probably not going to be using them as frequently as you would on the normal difficulty, just because stim packs don't heal you instantly. You're probably going to be healing more with food and with other healing items, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as well as if you're like me and you just hoard stim packs to sell for caps. Basically, I just use stim packs for money because they don't weigh anything. This one can also be really good for that build too. Coming in at number 8, we have a very simple perk. This is Demo Expert. This one is a level 6 perk that requires 50 explosives. You can take it 3 times, and this gets you 20% more damage every time that you take it for explosive weapons. This is really strong for an explosive build, and one of the strongest just damage perks in general. I kind of touched on this when we were going over some of the other perks that were really good that I think deserved honorable mentions, and I think another honorable mention here should be Pyromaniac, which I talked about a little bit, because Pyromaniac I think has the highest amount of damage bonus that you get. It's only for fire weapons, and fire weapons are a very limited and kind of niche category in this game, which is why I think it's fine that they do have 50% more damage. Explosives getting 20% more damage, going up to potentially 60%, you just need to take this 3 times, is pretty crazy, especially for the mid-game, when explosives can be really, really strong and fairly plentiful. It's not super difficult to find things like 40mm grenades for your grenade rifle. Maybe you find a grenade launcher, maybe you have a missile launcher. It's really strong for builds like that, so long as you're not blowing yourself up with the explosives, of course. Coming in at number 7, we have Paralyzing Palm. Paralyzing Palm is a level 18 perk that requires 70 unarmed, and this makes it so you can paralyze enemies for 30 seconds with a VATS unarmed attack. That is pretty crazy. 30 seconds, anything can be dead in 30 seconds, assuming you're level 18, even probably the strongest creatures in the game. If you paralyze them, you can just beat them to death super fast, especially if you have some of the stronger unarmed weapons like Embrace the Mantis King, if you have the Fist of Rar, if you're using the Ballistic Fist, if you're using the Paladin Toaster. There's a lot of really strong unarmed weapons that just make this particular perk pretty crazy, especially if you're very comfortable getting up close and using the VATS system on anything, which I feel like most people that use unarmed probably are. Coming in at our number 6 spot, we have another very strong unarmed / melee perk. This is Super Slam. This is a level 8 perk that requires 6 strength and 45 melee weapons, and this makes it so any sort of unarmed or melee weapon has a 15% chance of knocking down a target, or a 30% chance if it's a two-handed melee weapon. This doesn't count for throwing melee weapons, though. I should include that. But any sort of unarmed or melee weapon has an increased chance of knocking down enemies. So again, if you knock anything down with melee or unarmed, you're probably going to kill it, regardless of what melee or unarmed weapon you're using, unless maybe you're using like a rolling pin or something, in which case that might be a little bit of a struggle. But assuming you're not using that and you're using strong weapons like Oh Baby, or the chainsaw, or the ballistic fist, the War Club is insanely strong with this one too, just because of how fast it attacks. Chance's Knife, Blood Nap, anything like that, you're going to kill it extremely quick. It's just very strong, and if you combine this with the other perks we talked about on the other list, where you have Piercing Strike that just ignores a decent amount of armor, and you have things like Slayer, where you can just attack faster. If you combine all of these perks together, it is very, very strong for a melee or an unarmed build. Even if you just wanted to go with a bare hands build, it's still quite strong. Then coming in at our number 5 spot, we have Them's Good Eating. This is probably one of the best quality of life perks in the game. This requires you to be level 20 and have 55 survival, as well as it is in the Old World Blues DLC, so you need to have that one. This makes it so any living creature that you kill has a 50% chance of dropping healing items when you loot them. This is Thin Red Paste and Blood Sausage. Both of these two items can be upgraded into Thick Red Paste or Black Blood Sausage, which gets even better healing, and that's really useful. They are extremely lightweight. The healing is very fast. You can put these in combination. They're probably two of the fastest healing items in the game, especially on the hardcore difficulty where everything takes time to heal, or where there isn't as much burst healing. Sometimes there is with like the big stim packs, or if you're taking like buff out. But these ones are really good for healing, and they're really, really good for making money because they are worth a lot. And since they are very lightweight, you can carry a lot of Thin Red Paste or a lot of Blood Sausage around with you and sell it at any sort of trader that you come by. Trade it for ammunition, trade it for other medical supplies, trade it for even weapon and armor repairs, assuming you're not going to things like jury rigging. It's just a super nice quality of life perk that works on just about any sort of build, especially if you're playing on the hardcore difficulty. Then coming in at our number 4 spot, we have Shotgun Surgeon. Shotgun Surgeon is another damage perk that I kind of left off the last list, but it's a very strong perk for shotguns. This makes it so you have armor breaking on your shotguns. You ignore 10 damage threshold with any sort of pellet that you're firing from the shotgun. I guess any sort of ammunition. It's not just pellets. It works for slugs, it works for pulse slugs, it works for flechettes, and it works for dragon's breath all the same too. I think it also works for beanbags, but you probably won't notice that so much. This does require you to be level 6 and 45 guns, so you can actually get it very early on, and just having armor breaking on shotguns is pretty strong. Especially if you have something like the Riot Shotgun, which you can spam fire really fast, or the Hunting Shotgun, which already does really high damage per shot. It's good for early game shotguns too, like the Single Shot Shotgun, the Caravan Shotgun, or the Lever Action Shotgun, although this doesn't work for the Sturdy Caravan Shotgun for whatever reason. It works for every other shotgun except for that one. For whatever reason, that one just isn't affected by shotgun perks. And since we're on the topic of shotguns, let's go to our number 3 spot, which is And Stay Back. This one is a level 10 perk, which requires Dead Money, so you do need to have the Dead Money DLC, and it requires 70 guns. This one gets all of your shotguns a 10% chance per pellet to knock down enemies. We already talked about how strong Super Slam is. If you knock something down, you can just beat it to death with melee or unarmed very easily in a lot of cases. It's also really easy for shotguns to beat down stuff at very close range, especially if they're on the ground and can't fight back. A very, very strong perk overall, again, if you're using shotguns. Really strong if you're using something like the Riot Shotgun. And I should mention that all these shotgun perks only count for the ballistic shotguns. They don't count for energy weapon shotguns, like the multi-plas rifle or the tri-beam laser, sadly. Although those weapons are already quite strong by themselves, and they do have some really strong perks associated with them, like Laser Commander, which we talked about in the last one, so I would argue that they probably don't even need this. Then coming in at our number 2 spot, we have Cowboy and we have Grunt. I lumped both these together because they both do a very similar job. They require you to be level 8, Cowboy requires 45 guns and unarmed, I believe, or sorry, melee, and then Grunt requires 45 guns and I think 20 explosives to get. Grunt is on the Honest Hearts DLC, so you do need to have that DLC to get it, but both these give you 25% more damage towards weapons that are associated with them. For Grunt, this is things like the 9mm submachine gun and pistols, 45 submachine gun and pistols, grenade launcher, grenade rifle, combat knives, frag grenades, and all the service rifles, marksman rifles, and the assault carbines all count towards Grunt getting 25% more damage. Cowboy gets you 25% more damage for knives, hatchets, dynamite, lever actions, and revolvers. And this counts towards any weapon that fits into those categories, as well as certain weapons that do count into both of these categories, like Chance's knife counting as a combat knife for both of them. I think Blood Nap counts for both of them too. I think the Bowie knives also count for both these, or maybe they just count for the Cowboy perk. I can't remember right now. They're really strong for early game builds because it's very common to find weapons like that. You can find Cowboy repeaters, 357 revolvers. It's even strong as you go on when you can have like the Ranger Sequoia, the Survivalist Rifle, All-American. They're all really good with these perks. The only builds that these aren't really strong on are Unarmed, because it doesn't count for anything in Unarmed, I don't believe, and Energy Weapons, because nothing counts as a revolver energy weapon or a lever action energy weapon, which I think would be really cool. I hope that gets added into one of the Fallout games eventually. And then we have our number 1 perk, which is Chemist. Chemist is an insanely strong skill on really any sort of build. Chemist is a level 14 perk that requires 60 medicine, and this makes it so chems and stimpaks, at least in the hardcore difficulty, last twice as long. That is pretty crazy because this counts for everything that is a consumable, I believe. So you can mix this with the Implant GRX and get even longer turbo use. You can also have just regular longer turbo use. You could have medics use, you can have psycho use. There's a lot of really good things in this game that you can take that make you insanely strong during fights, as well as you can quick bind a lot of these things too. You can quick bind your turbo, you can quick bind your medics, your stimpaks. You could also, I guess, use that armor that you get from Old World Blues, which gives you things like medics and stimpaks too. Those are bonuses as well. Chemist is just really, really strong. Even if you're just playing a pacifist build, Chemist is still really good because there's plenty of parts in the game where you could just use turbo to get out of bad situations or just run faster through areas. It's also really crazy if you wanted to take this plus Logan's Loophole as a trait to where you can't be addicted to chems and chems last twice as long. You are limited to level 30, but if you don't plan on playing through all the DLCs, you don't plan on getting to level 50, that's not such a huge deal. And this is 10 more great perks in Fallout New Vegas. There's a lot of really good perks in New Vegas, so I'm sure I missed some of them. If you haven't seen the first part, be sure to check that out, and tell me what your favorite perks are down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Thanks everybody for watching this. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.